Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Raven's Eye. This is the Raven's Outpost. Tonight we have a special guest, Briana Craighead. And let's start the show, shall we? All right, everybody. Welcome to the show. That went surprisingly smooth.
Hi.
Introducing my niece, Briana.
Hello,
She
hello.
Good to have you. How you been?
Good to be here. Good. Good. How have you been?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Trying to get this thing off the ground. And we have Eric. Here we go. If there is one loyal individual, it's Eric, aka artist formerly known as Rick the Purple Hobbit. He's great. He's great. Here you go.
Hi, Eric.
Yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about vampires. Vampires. Are they fact? Are they fiction? Are they somewhere in between? There are histories of these beings all over the world, different countries, and well, thank you, Rick. I've called you Rick for so long, Eric. Man, it's hard to get used to coming back and going to see audience participation. Man, is great. It's great.
I love it.
Yeah, it is. So we're going to get started from an article from History Channel, which is kind of iffy, but get what I can get. But before we do this, before we get into this, I'd like you to kind of let the audience know a little bit about how you got interested in the paranormal.
Well, I don't really remember what started it. I think I've always kind of been really interested in it, or at least in tune to it, maybe. Um, Definitely you had a big influence on that. As my uncle, But yeah, it's just kind of always been an interest of mine. And I've just really kind of ever so quietly or not so quietly been very interested in it and kind of done my own research on things. And yeah, it's
Have you
kind of
had
been a whole
any?
experience.
Uh, have you had any personal experiences?
Um, a few with, different, paranormal things for sure. And that obviously fuels the fire. Once you experience things
Right.
yourself, you kind of never go back.
Yeah. Do you care to elaborate, or is it one of those things you want to keep to yourself?
No, that's fine. I've definitely seen some things, heard some things. More along the lines of like entity type of stuff. Especially as a kid, and I believe in a certain house that we lived in. It was very much haunted, as you would say, but I wasn't the only one who experienced things. My entire family did, but yeah, very, very creepy, unsettling, kind of feeling like things have been kind of following me throughout the years. So I just kind of feel a little bit predisposed to experiences. So
Got you.
yeah.
You wouldn't happen to be talking about the parsonage, would you?
Mm, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of
Yeah.
just spiraled from there. It's really been it's calmed down a lot in my adult years for sure, but definitely throughout my teens for sure it was very bad.
Do you feel like it something followed you, or is there a little bit of PTSD
I wasn't
involved?
sure at first. So I was always that kind of person who like really wanted to like rationale it in my head and be like, okay, like uh, maybe I'm just thinking that these things are still happening when I know I'm in a different area and in a different place. But it's just always kind of the same types of experiences to in my head make it think that it's genuine. So yeah,
Well,
I do think it's kind of been stuck to me.
Eric wants to know if it's ghosts or demons.
I can't really say. I'm definitely more. Oh, I lean more towards the demon side of it, to be honest. Just given the intensity and the kind of um, the aggression in it and the experiences and things like that.
Right. I remember hearing something about something that your sister told me
If I know
about
what you're talking about.
the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see it too?
Oh yeah, I think I was the first one to see it, if I'm not mistaken, because we've kind of had like powwows where we have tried to like figure out timelines and stuff because none of us ever really talked about it, so we didn't know that each other was experiencing it too, which is kind of sad because if we really could have found comfort in each other during that if we knew that, but we were kids. But yes,
Was it
there was just like a shadow. It kind of like looked like a hooded cloaked figure is kind of the best I can describe it, where it would just go from one end of the hall to the other, in a very specific spot every time, and then it would kind of like move forward towards the hall, like the way that our hallway was laid out. Like the only way out of the hallway was into the living room, so if you were sitting on the couch it would kind of have to come towards you. um,
wow?
and it would envelop the entire hallway, and you would only be able to see that sort of form, and it felt like it was staring at you and staring through you, and yeah, that happened many times.
Rick asking a question. My question is: Are there are they different, or demons pretending to be spirits? I believe there's a little bit of that. I
Hmm.
honest, I've seen instances to where they are kindly, playful until they're not,
Right, you
and
piss them off on good time. Yeah.
not necessarily that. It's where they get you into a weakened state of trust
Mm.
that they actually let their true nature and intentions be known,
Hmm.
and then things get nasty real
Yep,
quick, real quick.
definitely.
Um, did did this did this happen to all of you,
The
or was
only
this you?
person that I know that did not, or who says they did not experience it, was mom. Um, Everyone else, including dad, said that they had seen this. It's like as we had talked about it over the years. I think all of us, to some extent, had seen it. Maybe not, Denise. I'm not sure, but
Right now, last week, I'm sure, I'm sure that your mom's ears were burning a little bit because I was talking about her a little bit, and we of course got on to the subject of cryptids and all, and I believe there was a lot that Daddy, Grandpa,
Mhm.
didn't tell us when we were kids, but he made sure there was lights outside. We didn't go outside after dark
Mhm.
when we were little. That it just didn't happen. And you hear about people saying that well, we did all this and we all did all that and didn't have these problems. Well, what I think is something happened to Grandpa, and he knew more than he would ever tell, but he wanted to keep us safe. He made sure that he was keeping us safe from the booger man. and that's
Correct.
how. As it's not the boogie man, but the booger man. Now down here in the South, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call them, they're called boogers in the South. Wood boogers.
That's such
Yeah,
a
I,
tame
I,
name for them.
I
It
I
sounds almost cute.
know, I know, but
A little bugger.
it's rough. I do believe that he knew more than he was willing to tell. And he
The
made sure
amount
there
of
were
time he
lights.
spent in the woods, I
Hmm.
don't doubt that at all. He
Hmm.
was just that kind of stoic man who just wouldn't admit to anything like that.
Yep. And he and the night I heard that roar, howl, scream up on the mountain there behind the house, um, he actually didn't seem surprised. He
That's
didn't say
wild.
he didn't say anything bad or negative toward me about it. Like, well, you must have been hearing something, blah 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 blah. Not once did he say that ever. So
He knew what was up.
I believe so.
He knew. Oh
I believe so. I believe he always knew what was up. Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah. So I think the paranormal, I've said this before um, in previous episodes, uh, that paranormal means part normal. Anything that is out of our version of the ordinary is paranormal. And the word paranormals has gotten such a stigma attached to it that it's just related to, if you say I'm into the paranormal, you're automatically a ghost hunter, or
Ghosts, yeah.
yeah. But you could be a ufologist. You
Hmm.
could be hunting UFOs, the strange lights in the sky. You could be hunting Bigfoot. You could be hunting chupacabra.
Hmm.
It all stems from the same thing.
I
So
think a lot of people kind of take the word paranormal and kind of use it interchangeably with supernatural or spiritual. It's like it's not the same thing.
that's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Eric says, interesting. I always wondered why my parents insisted on us being inside in the lower peninsula of Michigan. No bears roamed the countryside then.
Your
Yeah.
parents also knew what was up.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so. I would say so. You look back then, you're a child of the 70s and living back in rural Virginia, hardly anybody locked their door. Hardly anybody locked their door. We locked doors, we closed and locked windows, and we made sure the curtains were shut.
Oh, Grandpa knew.
Yep. Es-
He was like,
Especially
nope.
especially for us kids. Now, my mom, grandma, um, I still don't think she fully understands the concept. I don't think she does. She was always thinking about the booger man and boogie man and some bad. She related that to the bad people,
Hmm.
but I really don't think that she ever had any type of um, encounters. Now she's had her own paranormal experiences. I don't know if
Has
you.
she really?
Oh yeah, yeah. She's had her own
Really?
paranormal experiences. I asked her, she lived the remainder of her life with her family before she got married there in Floyd, and part of their chores were getting up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, getting out and herding cattle up to get into milking. And there was one certain spot I asked Mom, I said, "Did you ever, while you were out there, feel anything, see, feel like, something wasn't right?" She said, "Well, there was one spot quite often I'd go out there, and this is coming from your grandma." She said, "I always felt like I was being watched."
Mm,
So,
she wouldn't say that lightly. She's definitely a very matter of fact,
mm,
not into
yeah,
the oogie boogie type of person.
right, right. And she was very if you notice how ritualistic she is about certain
Mhm.
things, she's got to have the same routine. And her feeling about this is this: if she screws up this routine, something bad's going to happen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Fact is that there are certain times when it actually has happened. I mean,
What?
a family member had died because she had, and you can relate it to coincidence. One time, I don't fully believe in coincidence. One time it's a coincidence, the next time is a fact, and
Absolutely.
it has happened. It had happened several times. Um, my uncle, our uncle Altrude, when he passed away, that's one instance. When the old home place up there in Floyd, where Aunt Pauline lives now, there was a big, nice house. I wish you could have seen it. It was great. When that house burnt down, she had foreseen that. She foresaw a lot of stuff, precognitive. So when she
That's
war
insane.
when grandma warns you about something, you might want to take a minute and sit back and study about what she's talking about.
That's crazy that she's likely, like, gifted in that way and never even really understood it herself or knew that that's what
No,
was happening.
no. You back
That's
then
wild.
you just don't talk about stuff like that.
Do you think that was actually some sort of gift that she has, or if it was something that was giving her that information?
It's a very good question. I've thought about that a lot. If she had what you would call a spirit guide,
Mhm.
you know, I think it might have been just her,
Mhm.
and her being sensitive.
She's just sensitive to it, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
crazy.
there's been also times when I had to scratch my head and wonder. It's just I don't know. It could have been a little of both. It runs in the family.
We all kinda seem to be very, predisposed to stuff like that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to tell you something. This is I got off there on a tangent. I have to digress from what I was saying because I was talking about last week, Friday. I got to talking about how your mom used to always have these nightmares about monkey people coming to take her away. Monkey people looking in the windows.
Oh my god.
Now I believe your mom is a denier, and
Love
honey,
her
if
with
you're
all my heart,
listening,
but yes.
mm-hmm. Honey, if you're listening, I believe you're a denier.
She's a ray of sunshine, and she knows it, and she likes it that way.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss. I know a lot of people like that, and I try not. I'm not gonna. I'm. I don't want to piss on anybody's parade. I think that's. I think that's the main thing.
See,
I
what my mama did, she copied and pasted when she had me. Like, I pretty much am a carbon copy of her, copy paste. So,
yeah.
I'm just I my mama must be predisposed to stuff like that because she has a lot more experiences than she's willing to say. I know. You get her on a subject and she gets mighty uncomfortable. She doesn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she's always been one of those people who has, said that, if you pay attention to that stuff, you invite it in, or you kind of like if you give attention to it, that type of thing. And I don't disagree with that, but um,
Right.
I think that's where that kind of avoidance nature comes in. But
Right.
yeah, she definitely has had a lot of experiences, more than you would think for
Hmm.
someone who doesn't truly believe, I don't think.
Right. I totally agree with that. And here we go. Clayton Blackwell, nice to have you in the chat, brother. Real vampires are nothing like the fictional stories. They are ugly, savage, and vicious, looking akin to the Nosferatu than Dracula. They have a mouth full of sharp teeth.
I see that skewed a lot in like even in depictions that or stories even that try to be faithful to original lore, where they have that quote unquote original vampire, the one that kind of turns people, and that's what they look
Mhm.
like. But
Right.
the people that trickle down the line look like normal people in that sort of lore. So I agree
Right.
with that, though, that
Hmm.
they should look monstrous.
One of the few movies, um, I believe personally, to get it halfway close to correct as far as historical lore. Um, Salem's Lot.
I don't think
If
I've ever
any
seen
of
that.
you out, if you any of you out there remember Salem's Lot, you'll remember the master and what the master looked like. And none of the um, victims that he turned looked very nice and beautiful and inviting.
I
Lisa
wonder if.
Rue,
Oh,
welcome to the
hi.
chat. Lisa Rue, welcome to the chat.
Hello, hello.
You were going to say, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no,
Sorry.
you're good. You're good. Um, I wonder if it changed, like the lore sort of kind of migrated into them being these, beautiful, entrancing creatures, and like the like epitome of human perfection. Like I wonder why it shifted in that direction. If that was actually truth, or if that was just kind of storytelling and kind of trying to like make sure that people didn't fall into the trap of getting bitten. I guess I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's Hollywood's way of dumbing things down.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah, they led us astray on a lot of stuff, and I hate to jump down that rabbit hole, and that's for probably another show. Maybe we can get into that later on, but you know, uh, but according to getting back to vampire history, according to this history.com, vampires are evil mythological beings who roam the world at night, searching for people whose blood they feed upon. They may be the best known classic monsters of all. Most people associate vampires with Count Dracula, the legendary blood sucking subject of Bram Stoker's epic novel Dracula, which was published in 1897. But the history of vampires began long before Stoker was born. So that's what a lot of people um, look at. Um, and when you get to another article here, History of Vampires, Blood is Their Way of Life, the first vampire. Only a vampire can create another vampire. So logic tells us that the history of vampires began with a single vampire who created the others. Much like the chicken and the egg argument, we had little insight into how the first vampire came about until recently. The answer lies in the scriptures of Delhi, specifically in the collection of writings known as the Vampire Bible. The first vampire started out as not a vampire at all, but a human man named Ambrogio. He was an Italian born adventurer who fate brought to Delphi in Greece. You can read the full story here, and this is coming from schmore.com. You can read the full story here, but in a nutshell, a series of blessings and curses transformed this young man into history's first vampire. Specifically, it began with the sun god Apollo in Greek mythology, who, in a fit of rage, cursed Ambrosio so that his skin would burn should it ever touch sunlight again. Ambrosio's bad luck followed when he ended up gambling away his soul to Hades in Greek mythology, the god of the underworld. The next curse came via Apollo's sister Artemis, the goddess of the moon and hunting, who made it so that Ambrosio's skin would burn if he touched silver. The blessings became the blessings came soon after when Artemis, taking pity on the poor young man, gave him the gift of immortality. He would carry his curses, his skin burning by sunlight or silver, but he would live forever in his current form. Not only that, but Artemis also gave him the speed and strength to become a hunter whose skills were second only to her own. Blood sucking, which, by the way, is called hematophagy. I'll get that right in a minute. It's a mouthful. In case you were curious, is also included in this blessing. In the vampire original story, Ambrosio hunts swans and uses their blood as ink to write love poems to his lady Selene. While this may be considered a little creepy by our standards, it wasn't at all that unusual in ancient Greece to make do with what you hunted. So there's that.
So that's a far off cry from what we have today, even in
Yes.
things that try to be more faithful to original, quote unquote, uh, lore for sure.
Right. Right. I've heard many stories of vampires. You're talking about the actual blood sucking vampires, and then there's the energy vampires out there.
Oh, I've heard of those. They feed off your energy
Mm-hmm.
instead of your blood, which still can kill you, apparently, if they are too greedy with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Lisa posted said something in the chat. She said, "Didn't Vlad the Impaler have a quenching thirst for drinking blood too?" So I have heard a few things about the story of Vlad.
Right.
So his name was Vlad Dracul.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think that he was a very big inspiration for Stoker's, Dracula, because they
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of similarities. Like Vlad the Impaler liked to, obviously, as the name would suggest, impale his victims with a wooden stake. So
Mm-hmm.
Dracula can only be killed with a wooden stake through the heart. Essentially, the story goes that Vlad liked to, sort of eat next to his victims and grossingly include their blood in his meals as,
Mm-hmm.
just being crazy, I guess. But yeah, so they think that that was had a lot to do with the inspiration, but also some Dracula experts say no. So I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of conflicting tales too.
Yeah.
But if you were to go to Romania today, they still to this day hail Vlad Tepes as a hero because he fought against the Ottoman Empire.
Hmm.
He defended their country from the Ottomans. He defended them and won because he posted thousands of their troops in
Hmm.
grotesque fashion. This is what's going to happen to you if you come any further into my country. You're going to die a horrible death. Stake through the rectum and out the mouth.
I
Usually
mean,
that's how it
that
went.
really paints a vivid picture to stay away.
Yeah. Yeah. So either way, he was a vicious individual. You
Hey, he
know.
got the job done.
but you had to be. Look,
Yeah.
you back then you couldn't be. Oh, well, we'll negotiate. There's no negotiation with these people. You kill them first before they kill you.
Eat or be eaten.
Pretty much survival of the fittest.
Lisa, I'm digging your comments. Okay. She said, I deal with energy vampires daily. They're narcissistic. So yeah, they're just narcissists are energy vampires. Yeah, that's just how that plays.
And that there's humor to that
There's
actual
truth in that
truth.
also.
Exactly. That's what I was getting ready to say. There's humor to the truth because they are. They'll if they're not the center of attention, they will make sure they will go out of their way to make sure they are. So
Oh, Clayton coming in with the big facts. So he said, with real vampires, garlic is repulsive because of their sensitive noses because they hunt with scent. I had never thought of it like that. I think that's great.
right.
Luckily, garlic is my spice of life, so I'm safe.
Amen. Amen. Mm. Ashley will quite often say, "Well, honey, it is a little garlicky." I'm like, "Well,
That's why
it's
it's good.
that's right. It's good for you." I asked her. I said, garlic is good for so many things. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's an antibiotic, right? It's a natural antibiotic. How can you go wrong with that?
Right, and it's yummy.
It is.
Have you ever heard of, I think this is a more 20th century type of uh answer as to why vampires can't look in or don't show up in their reflection in mirrors. But I heard that it was because mirrors were originally made of silver. So because they're like, they can't deal with silver, is to why they never showed up in their reflections in mirrors.
Interesting. I've never heard that.
I've also heard that there's been conversations about it where that's not totally true because poorer people back then had mirrors that were made of like any sort of like tin or something like that that was kind of available, so that kind of shoots that idea in the foot, but
Hmm.
I thought that was kind of a
Yeah.
neat explanation.
Yeah. Yeah. That not all. Silver was a very expensive commodity back in the
Hmm.
day, and putting that tin on the back of that glass is a hell of a lot less expensive than lining it with silver.
Right.
It's interesting. I believe that's right too. Um, this is interesting. Sunlight is harmful because of the lack of pigmentation because they are a nocturnal cave dwelling species. That's interesting.
Lisa said maybe they lose their soul being immortal. So I've heard that too. So a lot of
Hmm.
the times where people will say like, mirrors and even photographs and things like that are kind of gateways, and
Hmm.
doorways to, other, realms and dimensions and things like that, or even a look into the soul. So they don't have a soul, therefore they cannot reflect into it, type of thing.
That may be true. Yeah, and Rick, you're right. Tin was a poor reflective source. If you were to ever see an actual antique mirror from pre turn of the century, the 1900s, you look at it and you'll see just how rough it is. I mean, you're looking real hard to find yourself in that mirror.
So them girls back then was walking out of the house a whole hot mess. Didn't even know
Right, right.
it. Oh, my hair looks nice. Girl, you can't even see your hair. What are you talking about?
uh,
Loving it.
yeah. Three guesses of what I just did, and the first two don't count. Oh yeah, it's good tea.
Spilling it.
Let's say Let's hear. Hmm. Let's go look at defense and protection, according to this article from S'more. The best way to deal with vampires, of course, is to prevent them from coming back in the first place. A few centuries ago in Europe, this was often accomplished by striking suspected vampires in their graves. The idea was to physically pin the vampire to the earth, and the chest was chosen because it's the trunk of the body. This tradition was later reflected in popular fiction depicting wooden stakes as dispatching vampires. There was no particular significance in using wood, according to the folklore. Vampires, like the Jinn or genies, and many other magical creatures, fear iron. So an iron bar would be even more effective than a wooden stake. Other traditional methods of killing vampires include decapitation and stuffing the severed head's mouth with garlic or a brick. In fact, suspected vampire graves have been found with just such signs. According to the 2012 Live Science article, the body of a woman was found in a mass grave on the Venetian island of Nuovo Lazaretto. Suspecting that she might be a vampire, the common folk belief at the time, diggers shoved a rock into her skull to prevent her from chewing through her shroud and infecting others with the plague, said anthropologist Matteo Briani of the University of Florence. Other researchers later challenged this interpretation and suggest that the brick may not have been placed in the mouth after all, but instead was one of many bricks surrounding the body that merely fell there after burial. Whether that burial reflected an accused vampire or not, other graves are much clearer. In 2013, that's pretty recent,
Mm-hmm.
archaeologists in Bulgaria found two skeletons with iron rods through their chest. The pair are believed to have been accused vampires, according to the article in Archaeology magazine. So, iron.
It's a very, very common item for a lot of mythical creatures or
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Wonder if there's like something like to that, as to why that in particular, like iron in particular, is kind of the metal that does it all.
I don't know. Maybe it's because it's the purest. It's not. Steel is hard and it's malleable, but it's not. It's not that pure. It's
Hmm.
mixed. It's a mixture of different metals to form that hardness and um, sharpness. I don't know. It's of the earth. Another theory of harming some of these creatures is isn't silver at all. I've heard that it's copper.
I've heard that too, and I think a lot of people get silver confused with vampires and werewolves. Um,
Right.
I don't think that at least originally, I never thought that there was anything to do with silver and vampires.
Yeah, that's what I thought years ago too. But I also found out about the myth of or the mythos. Well, I won't call it a myth yet. About the silver and a vampire's weakness to it. I've learned about that a long time ago.
It's interesting.
Here's another interesting little thing that you may be, privy to. Some traditions hold that vampires cannot enter a home unless formally invited in. This may have been an early form of modern stranger danger warnings to children, a scary reminder against inviting unknown people into the house. If your local village neglected to unearth and stake a suspected vampire and he or she is returned from the grave, there are steps you can take to protect yourself. So,
I love it.
stranger danger. Yeah, that's
That's one that's definitely very
that'll work.
more on the rarer side of the different depictions is like the invitation thing. Like you hear
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes, but definitely not most. You hear garlic almost every time. You hear, stake through the heart of some sort. But being invited in is definitely an odd one out.
Yeah, yeah. I never really understood that.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
one of those one of those rules. No, no. But vampires are very unique.
Yeah, it's kind of like it doesn't really have like anybody can kind of add to the lore, really. Like it doesn't really have like a set, rules to follow. So it just kind of it's been going out of like going crazy for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, black-eyed children are a whole other set of those ones scare me. I don't I've never experienced those, thank God, but they scare me.
Yeah. Um, the black-eyed children are another subject that I want to get into later on down the road. Um,
They're so interesting
hmm There's so much
because
that people. Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
what I was going to say. There's just so much about. There's so much out there that people really need to know about.
Mhm.
I know so many people that are just indifferent about it. Um, they they they're firmly clenched to the idea that all this is fiction.
I think that
The-
kind of boils back down to people who are just unwilling to deviate from any sort of preset rules or societal notions type of thing,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you'll notice that people who are more open minded and quote unquote even conspiracy theorists, type of thing,
Mhm.
are the people who have had experiences or believe in experiences that others have had
Right.
and are open-minded to it. You've definitely have the same group of people on either side, or same groups of people rather.
Let's see. Chat's
I've
really
heard the
hopping.
Lilith one too.
Yeah,
Yeah, you guys are
I have
great.
too. I have too. This is good. Lilith, the dark lady, fits the bill. Indeed.
I've really wanted to look more into Lilith because obviously she's definitely not a mainstream subject because she's a hot topic.
Mhm.
um, Nobody wants to admit that Lilith existed before Eve. But
Right.
I actually believe that if, pending any of those stories are true, I believe that Lilith definitely would have been a thing.
Well, I mean, it's in the Torah.
hmm I think that so she, not Lucifer, was the one who tempted Eve with the apple. Is the story that I have heard.
It's very well possible. I'm not privy to that one, but you know, I believe that's possible because she's got her place,
hmm
and she's got her reasons to hate us as much as Lucifer.
So, Clayton, I have a question for you. What do you have any sort of theories or what you know of that could be the cause of what created those vampiric creatures, like the actual real vampires. Like what is their creation story? Do you know? Because I'm just really interested in how it got, so bastardized from that to the sparkly vampires that we know and love these days.
Oh yeah.
Oh, do we
Oh
need to go down
yeah.
the Twilight rabbit hole? Let's do it.
Yeah. It's funny. I was in the store today, picking up some stuff for supper, and looking at a magazine and it's talking about vampires and people's fascination for them. And I almost picked that issue up
Do
just
you
to
want to know
read
my
it.
theory on that?
Go ahead, please.
So I think it's because Stoker's version of Dracula obviously kind of blew it out of the water, and had vampires be mainstream. But if you guys notice, that is a very like seductive and has a lot of sex appeal and a lot of like those types of elements in the stories. And you'll notice that kind of morphed vampires into being these charismatic,
Hmm.
seductive, entrancing creatures. And that's kind of why I think people are obsessed with them, because of that element. They're not scary. They're sexy, you know?
Right.
Like it kind of adds that to it. And that's the appeal these days, I think.
Along with that immortality, being beautiful forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who wouldn't want that, right?
Hmm.
I think with the new, it's weird because I don't know really what sparked it, but there's kind of this new resurgence of like the baby Twihards, the Twilight fanatics of my generation have kind of had this resurgence of Twilight love, and it's kind of blown up yet again. Um,
Wow.
It really has. It's like all over social media, like people like watching all of it over again. Like you're having cast reunions with, a cast that absolutely hated the movies. Like they hated the movies that they were in. Um, it's just this whole thing. And I think that's kind of blowing the whole vampire thing up too, because obviously that's what they quote unquote are, but they aren't. Anything but.
Right. Right.
Because even the vampires in Twilight do everything they can not to drink human blood. So
Hmm.
it's kind of a whole thing.
And I think if anybody plays any video games, okay, we're going to look at Skyrim. And the last DLC that they had to come out, and it had to come everything to do with vampires. Now, their beauty was a facade, a masquerade, and their true form was hideous and monstrous, and they had no love for humans, and they viewed humans as cattle. And so I think they got that right. I think they got
Hmm.
that part right as far as the lore goes. Now, I believe, do I do I believe that vampires exist? I'm talking about the nasty, blood sucking monsters. Yes, I do. I believe they're rare, but I believe they exist. I believe there are vampires of a lot of different types out there.
Hmm.
Of course, there's the energy vampire, the psychic energy vampire. But when we're talking about the actual vampire that everyone tends to think about when the name is mentioned, I think they exist. I truly do. I believe werewolves exist.
Yeah.
Where they come from, I don't know. Um, and I call them werewolves. There is a trend now, and it's been going on for many years now. Do call these creatures the dog man, and it's been going on for a long, long time. And I'm just I don't know. I listen to. I don't know if you're familiar with Linda Godfrey or not, but she has been referred to quite often as the godmother of Dogman. She was
What a name. That's
mhm.
amazing.
She was a fledgling reporter in Wisconsin, um, and was it Wisconsin? Was it Michigan? Oh my gosh!
I thought the dog man was a Michigan thing.
You believe you're right? It is Michigan. Okay, Beast of Bray Road. Okay, that's where it comes from. Anyway, she had her own encounter with these creatures, and it was just her and her kids and a 30-06 or 30 or 308. I can't remember which one she had, but she had a 308, and she was going to pop a few rounds into this joker. And she said it was big, it was evil, and it messed with her. Elkhorn Dog Man is Wisconsin.
So, do you have any information on? So, I also kind of lean towards the fact that the Dogman is just kind of the newer, more known version of an actual werewolf. But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people say they're entirely different creatures. What do you have to say about that?
I don't know. I really don't know. I
Could
don't
they be
know
like a
enough.
subspecies of one another? If they even do they procreate? I don't know. It really depends on the lore you're looking at as on whether or not they actually procreate. So.
There are people out there who focus solely on uh, the dog man.
Mhm.
That they believe they exist. They believe there's a different species of them, like there are Sasquatch. There are
Mhm.
different types.
Yep.
And Rick, you're right. Dog man is all over. I believe there. I don't know if they're as populated as the Sabe people are, but I believe they're out there. Um, you hear a lot of stories about people seeing them and uh, being terrorized by them, but very few do you hear about them actually killing people.
So what did they get out of doing that sort of torment? And I'm unfamiliar with dogmen,
Well,
really.
see, see, that's the $1,000,000 question.
Yeah,
I
why?
don't know. I don't know. There's um there's a fella out here. He's a storyteller, and he goes by the name of Dark Waters. Dark Waters is great. Um, he had his own interaction with Dogman, and he refers to them as the crypto terrorists. Okay, yeah, because of how they interact.
They're just mischievous little jerks. Like
It's maybe they feed off of
that
that
fear.
fear.
Mhm.
Yeah, they feed off the
It's
fear.
interesting.
Yeah. Um, Many years ago, after I had my first encounter up on the mountain there, I am at work, sitting on a computer, and I'm dredging through stuff and looking at articles, and I find one about this creature that lived not too far away from where we lived. Are you familiar with
Fun.
Are you familiar with Sweet Spring Hollow?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they said that it was some type of werewolf type creature that lived up in there.
Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
creepy is that?
Now I have tried and I've tried and I've tried to find that story and that article about, um,
Oh, they really
uh,
put a cap on stuff like that. It's almost like you're like, am I even remembering this right? Where you know that those articles and stuff were a thing, but then like somehow they get covered up or squashed or
mhm.
something. And you can never
Well,
find a trace of them again.
it was a couple of years back. I believe they actually did try to do a scrub of a lot of this what they consider conspiracy
Mm.
um, content that they had floating around the internet.
So they did the same thing, they do the same thing with everything, but the biggest one that was actually like caught-ish, was Roswell. So, like, there are people who still have the
Right.
OG news
Hmm.
articles of saying that, like, the military was involved in stuff like that or had made statements about stuff. Whether or not, you never know if news articles are true, but some people have, like, those records still, whereas you can't actually find, um, any sort of source about it anywhere else.
uh,
At first, I thought you were
re-
gonna say you've tried to find it, and I'm like, "Well, like, actually go find that thing? Like, that werewolf?" I'm like, "The
oh
okay,
no,
first of all, insanity. Why would you
no,
why would you
no,
do that?"
no. Uh, can't get no nana. Eric, what you talking about, dude? Are you reading chat? You reading chat? It's great.
They are great.
Lo- Love you guys. Love you guys. Uh, Dogman, Lisa, Dogman are a government experiment gone wrong and set free. There's a
As are a lot of
possibility.
things, I'm sure.
There's a possibility there are um, chimera out there running around.
Mhm. I
But
wouldn't
as
doubt it.
far but as far as the origin of the Dogman, I gotta tend to I have to disagree because there are stories and legends going back to in Mesopotamia and Samaria about um, bestial creatures, um, half man, half dog. So that's a long time, and but I, but see, there's another thing, another another rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah. There's pretty much everything can be led to some sort of rabbit hole.
When we're talking about Samaria, um, and we're talking about where it is surmised that the roots of human origin began. And if you want to get deep into it, we're we are also part of an experiment.
Mhm.
The human race being a part of an experiment. Um, I don't know. I don't know. We've been kept in the dark about so much stuff that it's really all conjecture at this point, and you got to go on uh, faith
Mhm. You
a
kinda
lot.
just there is no, concrete explanation for anything, and you just kinda have to pick what you believe and kinda stick with it, anchor to it.
Saint Christopher, I do believe, was a dog man.
So,
Um,
Lisa brought up a good one too. She said Anubis, the Egyptian god. Do you think that was a dog man, or do you think that was, more of a, either, mm, colorful description or an
well,
actual, like, entity?
well, for the longest time, I forever thought that they were just depictions of how they saw their
Mhm.
quote unquote gods, but I believe that there's something more to it.
Right, because you have to think about how so many of them are half human, half creature. Um,
Right.
like, I think it's, Osiris, I think it is the crane or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, and then you have the Anubis, the dog, and you have a lot of them like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of have to wonder why, and it never deviates from it. Like they're always depicted like that.
Right. So I don't know. I believe there's a lot more to it.
Egypt is so fun. I love, ancient Egyptian mythology, that stuff. There's just so much going on there. That was a hot spot for stuff.
Let's see. New scientific evidence that the Sasquatch and Dogman are living Neanderthals.
That is something I had never heard of before.
That's a new one on me too. The thought is that they are humanoid species that was driven underground during the Ice Age, and they started resorting to cannibalism and herbivoric feeding out of necessity. You could be
That is an
right.
interesting theory. I heard something similar about the Yeti and as to why that they are so secluded into that one area of the what is that mountain range that they're kind of in? And I
The
can't think of it off the top.
Himalayas.
Yeah,
The
that.
Himalayas.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but we're kind of isolated in sort of a subspecies of the Sasquatch, and that's kind of how they evolved from there. Is their kind of evolution just kind of stuck there,
Right.
type of
Right.
thing. So that's a very interesting theory, though, Clayton.
You know, when we the subject, I don't know why, always comes back to Sasquatch. It's kind of funny when it comes to this channel. It really is. I guess it's because it's where it got
It's the
its
root.
origin.
Yeah.
It is the root to this channel when Encrypted Myths and Mysteries was its name. But I don't know. Um, I personally, you a lot of my research, if you want to call it that, and investing when I'm doing research, I'm listening to eyewitness accounts because who knows more than people who've actually seen them and have experiences
Right.
with them, right? Um, I'm not going to totally solely rely on some um, a biologist uh, to tell me what they don't know. I mean,
Mhm.
they can look at track casts, they can look at hair samples, they can look at um, uh, the handprints, and so on and so forth, and they can tell what they know. You know what they've been educated on so far, but they have not. There's the majority of them have not had any type of real experience with the Sabe people. They have not had any experience with the dog man werewolf, is what I really like to call them, the upright, walking canine type creatures, these werewolves. Um, it- to say they have different species, for me personally, with the Sasquatch, we just use that because it's a common term. I believe there is one species, but different races,
Mhm.
just like just like humans.
Because they're
And
on different continents, type of thing.
right,
Yeah.
not only that, you have reports of them acting different in the Pacific Northwest as opposed to the Southeast, like in Alabama and
They
Georgia, Mississippi, somewhere like that, and East Texas. Good Lord. I have heard so many horror stories of
Texas is wild.
East Texas being riddled with these creatures, these people, and they're wild. and I don't know. But I don't have one in my basement studying it right now. So I mean, this is all conjecture right now.
That's the thing, though, is if you think about it and you think about even in the same continent, how different they are region to region, as far as like the stories and how their behavior kind of
Hmm.
differentiates. It's like they're developing their own cultural differences just like we are. They're evolving like we are with us, around us, because
Exactly.
they have been around way longer than anyone wants to admit.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up because very few people will.
Hmm.
I mean, they're sapient beings. They have their
They're
own
intelligent.
language. Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say they're every bit as intelligent, if not more so, than we are. And people would say, if everybody has a camera, why haven't hasn't one been filmed yet? Is because they're
How do
in
you
their
think they're
house,
not known? Like,
right?
I mean, they have evolved to be able to hide from us successfully.
It's their job. It's their job. For
Mhm.
whatever reason, something happened. I don't know what, and we're being told X, Y, and Z about this doesn't exist. But you listen to Native American folklore.
Mhm.
Uh, there was some tribes had a very good working relationship with these people. Others couldn't freaking stand them. They hated one another and they warred with one another. I don't know.
But if you like we're spoon-fed our history from babies. Like
Hmm.
we are told what happened and what didn't without any sort of proof or, any sort of way to kind of combat that because we don't know any better. We don't know what we don't know, right? Like you're telling us this is one thing. We're missing a huge chunk of history in all of our sort of evolutionary time as people that we have kind of built.
Right.
So it's hard to tell what has happened that we just don't know because we're not allowed to know.
Humans as a race has a block of amnesia.
Oh my God, bad. We went from
Hmm.
hunter-gatherers to building civilizations in no time. And
There was
we've
a
kind of
reason.
just snowballed from there, and there's nothing in between. And they
Hmm.
find these buried civilizations and things like that. And they're like, wow, this changes the historical timeline because something either catastrophic or, you know, cosmic deity, whatever you would like to name it, happened and either like teleported us into some sort of like you know knowledgeable being where we weren't that before,
Hmm.
or like how like a lot of the times where you think about how they built these ancient structures when they had zero tools to be able to do so back then. Like you're talking about basically primitive beings being able to build monuments like that and like huge structures that they should not have been able to do.
Right.
So, really, what I mean by that is that, there could be anything happening in history that we don't know about that explains everything, and we're just.
Yeah. I wish Ray was on. She'd say something about it. Ray, if you're listening, please chime in. Ray doll. She's great. Hey, straight up tell you, okay? You know, they believe that uh, uh, there's a big gap, just like we've been talking about. We've talked about this. Talked about this a lot on this channel. Um, Eric says, I believe. Let's see. I believe Sasquatch and Dogman were here before the so-called indigenous people. I I believe so too, and I believe that uh, they've talked about that.
Hmm. They acknowledge that.
Hmm.
The indigenous history is what we need to pay attention to because they were respectful of others and they were respectful of things like that, and they told the truth. They do tell the
Mm-hmm.
truth. Whereas, the white man doesn't, type of thing.
We've been kept in the dark. One of the greatest tragedies, and this is my personal opinion. One of the greatest tragedies this world has ever experienced was the burning of the Library of Alexandria. When the Library of Alexandria was destroyed, that was one of the greatest tragedies. It's untold knowledge was lost. Eons of knowledge was lost.
And obviously that was, a purposeful event, but.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all about control.
Hmm.
We were talking about last week. We were talking about the Bible. Now, I
Oh, I have
still
so
have
many thoughts.
I I still have a Christian faith base to my belief. I believe in a higher power. I believe Jesus walked this earth. I
Yes.
believe that I believe in miracles because I've seen them,
Yes.
but I've also seen how screwed up organized religion is,
Hmm.
how it gears toward control, how it gears toward power.
And fear.
Fear is the biggest thing. The biggest thing now is the talk about, in certain sections. Well, is that hell was a construction of the Catholic Church to keep people in line.
Yes.
And, you know,
Hell was literally, if you translate it from Hebrew and in the original language of the text, is literally a location in Israel or near it, like where that is literally there where they used to go to burn trash.
yeah,
Hell is a concept made up by the church to scare people into obedience. And if, like, I mean, the concept of hell has caused untold damage to history because you get zealots that way. And just kind of blows my mind.
okay. People are people. Don't buy into the noble indigenous nonsense you've been told. Think they all got along. Ask the Apache about the Navajo. This is
Oh, I
fact.
know. Yeah, they
There,
they didn't get along with each other for
there,
sure.
there. You know, if you want to talk about slavery, you want to talk about that nasty little subject. There was a lot of that went on within the nations.
Mhm.
There was a lot of that.
It
People
was
being
brutal.
captured. People were captured from other tribes and other nations and brought to back, and then all sorts of nasty stuff was done. So yeah, it's there.
Yeah, but see, that is rampant anywhere in the world. I think they just had a better grasp and overall understanding of things spiritually, and mysterious things going on. I think that they had a better truth to it. Um,
Yeah.
they were not respectful to each other. No, I know that to be a fact.
While we're getting on the topic of misinformation and getting kind of trying to segue back into our original topic, are are vampires real? Vampire superstition thrived in the Middle Ages, especially as the plague decimated entire towns. The disease often left behind bleeding mouth lesions on its victims, which to the uneducated was a surging sign of vampirism. It wasn't uncommon for anyone with an unfamiliar physical or emotional illness to be labeled a vampire. Many researchers have pointed porphyria or a blood disorder that can cause severe blisters on skin that exposed to sunlight as a disease that may have been linked to the vampire legend. And you look at this and you think, well, how ignorant were these people? But you've got to think about how ignorant are we today? How
Mm-hmm.
we've been led astray by the same type of propaganda and misinformation.
Oh,
Okay, it
yes.
comes back. It says the symptoms of porphyria can be temporarily relieved by ingesting blood. Other diseases blamed for promoting the vampire myth include rabies and uh, goiter. When a suspected vampire died, their bodies were often disinterred to search for signs of vampirism. In some cases, a stake was thrust through the corpse of the heart, which we've already talked about this. Um, and we talk about Mercy Brown. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Mercy Brown. Are you familiar with Mercy Brown, Brianna?
I am not. Educate me.
Mercy Brown may rival Count Dracula as the most notorious vampire. But unlike Count Dracula, however, Mercy was a real person. She lived in Exeter, Rhode Island, and was the daughter of George Brown, a farmer. After George lost many family members, including Mercy, in the late 1800s to tuberculosis, his community used Mercy as a scapegoat to explain their deaths. It was common at the time to blame several deaths in one family on the undead. Bodies of each dead family member were often exhumed and searched for signs of vampirism. When Mercy's body was exhumed and didn't display severe decay, not surprising since her body was placed in an above ground vault during a New England winter, the
Mm,
town's
yeah.
see, it's one of those things, it's
You done
cold.
froze her to death. No, I mean, she was already dead, but
Yeah,
you done froze her.
she was a popsicle. She's not going to deteriorate very fast. The
Oh, love
town
it.
the townspeople accused her of being a vampire, making her family sick from her icy grave. They cut out her heart, burned it, then fed the ashes to her sick brother.
Ew.
Perhaps not surprisingly, he died shortly thereafter.
No, wonder why.
Jesus.
Oh my gosh. Why?
So,
It always amazes me how people get like they go jump straight to dramatics and being like fanatic about stuff all throughout history. Like that, I mean, even today. Like it's like any little thing and it's like, let's go to from like 0 to 100 like real quick.
right. Well,
Yeah, let's go ahead and cut out this poor girl's heart.
today's example is, I don't want to mention it other than just saying it's the coof.
Not the taboo subject of all taboos.
Lord have mercy. Yeah.
It's kind of it's funny to be able to point that out to people and then kind of like step back and be like, huh. Or you're like, wow, we're literally living history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, 15 days to slow the spread turns into almost 2 years.
Let's flatten the curve. What? I'm sorry, there's a curve? What? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, this is a straight uphill line. Okay? I don't know what you're talking about. Curve my ass, right? Like
But yeah, Scottish vampire lore. Um, the it's all over. Right now I can't remember the name of them, but I mean in the Middle East there's a name for them. in Asia. There's a name for them, especially in China and Japan, for the vampire.
Hmm. I'm
Um,
blanking on what they are. I used to know them.
yeah, same here. Um, and I've got a big book on them. Like I'm been cleaning. I've been trying to rearrange things so I can have a better workspace. And
I feel
right
it in
now,
my
it's
soul.
like right now it's just I'm just shifting junk. And and unfortunately, to clean one space, I have to shift this pile of junk to another space so I can get to it to clean it, and then I have to reorganize the junk so I can either throw what I need to away or keep it and put it in its respective
I've
place.
never felt anything more in my soul in my life. So like you literally just like migrate the junk to kind of get it out of your way and then put it back. Like you're not
Yeah,
cleaning anything. You're just kind of, hey, let's move this pile over here. I have many of what I lovingly call fuck it buckets. If I don't
right,
have a space for them, it goes in the fuck it bucket.
right.
And I have many.
Bucket, bucket. That is the word of the day, folks. The fuck it bucket. And some of these stories need to go into the fuck it bucket.
Oh gosh, yeah. They don't have a place and they're all kind of jacked in chaos and whatever. Stick it in the fucking bucket. We'll
Right.
deal with it later, right? And then never deal with it.
Lisa says I call it shuffle the shit.
Yes.
There you go. Yep. Ray! Late to
Senior
the
citizen
party.
nap.
Were your ears burning? We was talking about you. Was wondering where you was at. Many cultures do. And many cultures have different variants of the same type, you know. Um, my big thing is Norse mythology. I'll get that out in a minute. It's a mouthful. But when you're talking about hell, spelled Hel,
Mm-hmm.
Hela, the goddess of the underworld, that's where you went when you weren't very honorable. And it wasn't one of those things. Old people need to sleep. And let me tell you something. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm getting very little of it. I'm a cranky old man.
So I'm a cranky young woman because I don't sleep either.
I believe you. I believe you and I suffer from the same bit of.
Chronic insomnia. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
find Do you find yourself falling asleep?
Oh my God.
I mean, you're sitting there in the middle of something, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, boom, boom.
Yes. It's almost like a version of narcolepsy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're
Yeah.
like, huh. And the fact that I can sleep like at the drop of a hat during the day, but nighttime it's game over. I can't sleep. No matter like, and the sun goes down, my body. Maybe I'm a vampire. I don't know. My my body's just like not happening. It's not happening. You don't get to go to sleep at night. And I'm like, well, I have to be an adult and do adult things during the day. So suck it.
Okay. Now, Clayton is bringing up something that I'm going to cover in a future episode. As far as Sasquatch are, there are the Gugwi face eaters, the Genosqua stone giants that are both cannibalistic and vicious.
How
The
can they
gu-
eat if they're stoned?
the stone they call them stone giants. They have the way the Native Americans have described them has they have matted their skin and fur with uh, just stone and mud,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
And almost like they're almost like wearing armor.
That's cool.
Seriously,
That's
yeah.
actually cool.
But they're vicious. Now the gugwe, I believe, are often mistaken for werewolves because they have a snout and they have ears, like a dog. Some people have described them as having snouts like a baboon, which could be which if you looked at it right, they could look like a dog. You know, so
So interesting, because a lot of people, I think I've seen the argument of like, why are there so many different, like actually different creatures that look so similar? And you could say that about a lot of things. Like there are a lot of birds that look similar to one another. Like there are a lot of, you know,
absolutely, yeah.
like I just think that's a silly argument.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the subject of Friday night's episode.
I
Clayton,
love
isn't there
this.
another type of known as a Wendigo, not as the hungry spirit, but a white Sasquatch?
Oh, I am such a lover of Wendigo lore. That's been kind of my
Hmm.
new obsession. So
Hmm.
I'm definitely tuning into Friday's stream. It's gonna be fun to hear y'all talk about it.
Yeah. What I would eventually like to have is a big round table. Um, Tonight has been great. You've been a great
Definitely.
you've been a great guest.
Oh,
I
thank you
love
for
this.
having me.
You after our conversation, I've been wanting to have something like this, and I knew that your insight would lead a lot to the conversation, and bring up a lot. You're very knowledgeable, and I love that. And
Thank you.
what I would like to do is have you and Buck back on here, and we'd have a big round table about this, and we
Oh, that would be fun.
and get as many people involved as possible.
I love hearing other people's opinions.
Yeah,
Just like how everybody in the chat's super active. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
yeah, yeah. This is really nice. It's and I've said it before. It's what it's why I renamed the channel the Ravens Outpost. Once again, I stepped it in Norse mythology. You know, Odin's ravens, Hunin and Munin. You know,
I love
and
their names.
Hunin, Munin, yeah, and the Raven's Eye, the live stream. The live stream is the Raven's Eye, and that's where all the knowledge is accumulated, where everything comes to fruition. We all sit down, we examine what we've got, and we separate the wheat from the chaff, and try to, you know, make each other a little bit more aware of what's going on out there. Sometimes, unfortunately, because of the way things are, uh, politics will work its way into this conversation, and it's unavoidable because of the state the world's in.
Hmm.
But uh, if I could steer, if I could steer away from it, I will.
Definitely. I think it's just because it's such a sticky topic and can get so heated so fast. It's not a conducive discussion environment really to bring politics and stuff into it.
Eric says, "Love me some Skyrim. Skyrim's great.
It really is.
Skyrim's great. And I hope Bethesda doesn't screw up Elder Scrolls 7 or 6. Yeah, it's uh, with Fallout 76, it just didn't give me a whole lot of hope. Anyway,
Right. That's actually a kind of a beautiful thought, if that they chose name off of sound vibrations.
hmm
That's kind of like maybe beautiful is not the right word, but it's very mystical almost.
Mhm. See, ravens have been a very big topic, big thing for me for the last couple of years, especially when I was followed by them.
But
Yeah.
explain.
Yeah. Okay. Now, for a while, when I believe the troop, the clan, or whatever that I was interacting with in my research area, my investigation spots, um, when they were around, there were crows and ravens. If you've heard any of the stories about how the whole forest would just go deathly quiet, I, I've
Mm.
I've experienced that numerous times. Where I mean, the wind stops blowing, you quit hearing the crickets chirping, birds stop singing. It's just quiet. I mean, you could hear a mouse
That
piss.
is your cue to run.
Pretty much, but I mean, you could, seriously, you could hear a mouse piss on cotton, and and but you would hear a ah, 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 and it's that raven flying overhead and searching, and sweeping up and down.
It's
And
almost like they press a button to shut everything up.
I believe they work together. And it's at first I thought the ravens are pets. Ravens are too damn smart.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Ravens are too damn smart. They're not pets.
They also have been known to interact with people in a certain kind of way, like that. That has to be some
Yeah.
sort of evolutionary trait for
Yep.
them to know and understand how to interact with us in a way that we will understand.
Now, a lot of people talk about how they hear their name being um, talked back to them uh, in the woods. It could very
Oh,
well be a raven. If you've ever heard a raven mimic a person's voice,
it's creepy.
a parrot doesn't hold a freaking candle, in my opinion, to a raven.
Why don't people talk about that more? That
I
they
don't.
have that skill? Because so many people don't know that they can actually do that.
They're incredible. They're incredible. They have a pharynx and not a larynx as we do. And they actually use 100% of the air coming out of their body through the pharynx to make the sounds that they make.
That's incredible.
They it's like they have two types of vocal folds, a pharynx and a larynx, and they can make all kinds of different sounds, even down to mechanical sounds. Now, the Sasquatch have the Sabe people have been known to make these sounds as well. I've heard I've heard crazy shit out in the woods. Vehicles moving. There ain't
I've heard
nowhere.
that too. A lot of people will claim, like, hey, I heard a car door shut like 500 miles into the woods. How did that happen? Type of thing. Like where it's like, there's no way that that noise could have been made out here.
Right, right. I'm s-
Can
I'm
you?
I am six. I'm like 3.5 to 4 miles in either direction around me from any major highway, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden I hear cars.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear cars. It's like, where the hell is that coming from? No
Y'all are
way.
never gonna catch me in the woods by myself ever. That's just, I mean, everything that I have read and learned and studied upon. Your girl's good in the house, toasty and warm on my couch. I'm good. You, mm.
I understand that.
I will
Believe
learn from
me.
afar.
Believe me.
I think what solidified it for me, and this speaks to that noise thing that they're able to do, is you remember how I showed you that YouTube video of that missing 411, where
Hmm.
they had that like actual record that
The
haunts me to
the
this
Sierra
day.
sounds. The
Yes,
Sierra sounds.
that haunts me still. I still have like I, I don't know how to explain the way that that made me feel, but oh my gosh. That put a whole new perspective on it for me as to how intelligent that they really are.
Rick asked what people the Sabe. It's a term. It's a indigenous term for Bigfoot. Sabe,
So they
the
actually
hidden people.
acknowledged and knew that they were a like actual organized civilization of being.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I mean there's several tribes, several nations that actually traded with them. Not only them, but the little people as well. That's another story
Okay, so
altogether.
I want to like learn more about them because they freak me out.
The little
So,
people.
yeah, they freak me out. So I'm wanting to like dive deeper into them. I just need to get in the headspace where I'm not going to get freaked out about it, you know?
Oh, I hear you.
That's a mental prep. Just like the black-eyed children, I have to take a whole deep breath. Especially when at least in my circumstance, I live alone with my child, right? So
Right.
she is she has nightmares a lot. That's just something that she struggles with. So, she freaks me out at night anyway. I don't I don't need to have that imagery in my head, you know?
Lord, I am trying to find. Okay.
Clayton, you are coming in clutch with these names. Thank you. The Zhongxi are the Chinese
Yes.
vampires. Yes.
Thank you, Clayton. Thank you. Thank
He
you.
really
The
is popping in here
Zhangxi.
with the facts. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I've heard so many different things about the little people. Like you either you know, give them gifts or you don't give them gifts. Like the that whole thing where you need to either appease them or ignore them or yeah, that whole thing.
You don't piss them off
No.
because they're like a hive of freaking hornets and they'll come after you. And the one who hides, that's right. Sabe means the one who hides, the people who hides. Yeah.
Is that the Norse name for vampires, Clayton? The Draugr? I think you would
Draugr.
probably yeah.
Yeah. The undead. Draugr. That's it.
Ray, I'm thoroughly enjoying your presence. You are giving me life here. I've been freaked out for 68 years. I'm on that track. I'm on that track to follow suit. Okay. Do you think you'll ever do? Does like that missing 411 thing? Does that ever? Is that kind of encompassed in what you do here on the channel? Would that be anything that you would ever have a conversation about?
More than likely. I'm going to circle. I'm going to do a Jin Saki and circle back to it. No, I really am. I'm going to incorporate that in there because there's so much interesting stuff.
It's
Things.
fascinating
Mm-hmm.
to me, at least. I find it absolutely fascinating. It not so much the children make me sad, but it's the adults. Like when you literally have grown men, seasoned hunters, even just kind of vanishing out of thin air. That's completely interesting to me.
Yep, for fact. Let's see.
Fantasy games like to pull a lot of that, a lot of real creatures and kind of morph them into the whole different thing. So they use the names for them, but they're not even really what they're intended to be half the time.
True. It's all connected.
Preach it.
It's all
Yes.
conditioning. So this is Brianna. This is an inside joke with all of us now. Because the other night I was going off about this, that, and the third, and I was talking about the very first video that I made, and I said down to my first cringy ass video that I made. I said it's all connected, and Ray's brought it up ever since.
She's an
So
OG. We love it.
yeah, it's true, 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 true. Nightmares and dreams, real dreams, nightmares all my life. Same here.
Yes. Lee, do you remember how bad I had night terrors as a kid?
Yes.
Bad. Like I freaked my family couldn't even look at me for a long time because I scared the snot out of them so often. With my night terrors being so absolutely horrid.
Right.
Yeah. I had very vivid dreams.
I was hoping to be able to share, and it won't. I don't think it'll let me do it. Damn it, man. Well, no. I need an. I need another damn monitor. It's the
I
only
hate
way I'll be
that.
able to. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But I don't know. I'm going to try something here. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Um, I doubt it will. All right, here we go. You probably can't see. Can you see that?
Yeah. What on earth?
Uh,
I had to back it up just a hair. Well, that didn't work.
no, it didn't work. You could see it there for just a second.
There you go. Kinda.
Damn it, man.
There it
There we
is.
go.
There it is.
Okay. Now that's a possum track on the left hand side. And that looks like a little teeny tiny handprint right there beside it.
That's like a kid's hand.
Yeah,
Like some kids stuck their hand in the mud.
right beside a possum track.
Okay, way to go ahead and give me heart palpitations. Good grief.
L-
What in the world
Little,
did that?
little people, and they're
No.
right here, right here. I took that
Um,
photo. I took that photo. That photo's probably 2 years old, at least.
that's
I
insane.
I hope I didn't blind y'all. God, that's awful. I couldn't. Well, like I said, since now I don't have a screen, a second screen, I couldn't share that photo. Which sucks.
That's crazy though. I'm gonna have to do more research on the little people because I've been putting it off. So I don't know quite a bit about I don't know much, but they scare me. That's all I know. Aren't they some sort of fae? Or are they connected to the fae?
I believe they are. I totally believe they are.
In general, what is your opinions on fae type lore? I know that is such a broad generalized topic, but that's sort of like um fae type realm of creatures like that.
I believe they're earthborn entities.
Hmm.
I believe they were living, breathing flesh and blood, but they were something other.
Yes. Ray, it's funny that you say that because I have a hard time claiming myself as an empath, even though I know it's 158% true. Um, I just feel like it's a
158%.
I just feel like it sounds so, "Oh my god, I'm an empath," type of thing, but, I don't
Oh,
like to be, like, a self-admitted empath because I feel like those people are the ones who, like, feel like they have something to prove. But anyway, yes, I have
yeah.
always been able to feel energy. Energy is such a
Hmm.
huge thing for me. I can walk
Yep.
into a room and and literally scope out the energy in a hot second. I know if
Yeah.
I'm welcome there and if I'm not. Um, yeah, and I had horrendous nightmares, and I still do, so
Yep. Here lately, here lately, I've been pretty good, but Ashley will tell you there are times if you, okay, um, good for instance, Fright Night. You ever seen the movie Fright Night?
mhm.
Remember at the very end where the old boy is in full vampire form? Well, almost. You know, he's ugly as shit, and he is, and he just goes like this and just whoop, stands straight up in the out of his casket.
Mhm.
She swears that I've done that numerous times.
Ew,
Just
oh.
just jump up like that right out of bed, and
Ooh.
I'll have these horrific dreams. I call them horrific dreams. I mean, they're nightmares, is what they are. But
Mine would be very similar, and I remember, during my night terrors, I would just stand in the middle of, like, our dark hallway, in our childhood home, or in the doorway of my parents' room, or my sister's room, whomever I chose to terrify that night, um, and just scream the most ear-shattering, guttural scream you've ever heard in your life and wouldn't stop until they woke me up.
right.
And I had zero recollection of getting out of bed or making noises, so they had a hard time, with me because, like, listen, if my kid did that to me, I'm so thankful she does not have night terrors, but I'm telling you right now, if my kid did that to me in the middle of the night, I would punt her across the listen to
Punt
me.
her across the room.
I get too scared for that mess.
Jeez,
I'm like,
mom.
Listen, I will hug you later, but hold on. I just need to get the demon out of you first." I'm like, "Grab the salt." Like, ugh,
Get thee behind me, Satan. You are healed.
honestly. Grab the rosaries, Grandma. Like, I
I,
don't
I, oh, Lord.
know. The reason why I like Halloween, right, is because, as a closeted, weirdo, I get to kinda let that weirdo out a little bit and nobody knows the difference. You know what I mean? Like, if you're
Right,
into the creepy,
right.
you can be ultra creepy, and nobody knows the difference. So that's kinda why I dig Halloween. It's socially acceptable to be weird then.
Well, we went to the Halloween store up here in Christiansburg. Um, it's where the old Pier One used to be. You should check it out. They've got a plethora of costumes in there. It's really cool. And I looked at some stuff and I thought, no, I'm not gonna spend my money on that. I'm too old for that shit.
Never too old.
And that's what I tell myself to keep myself from doing it. Okay, that's I would have done it in a heartbeat. I really would because I mean it was great. But the thing is, we got in the car. She said, "You didn't get you anything?" I said, "No." Well, what are you gonna do for Halloween? I said, "Well, I'm going to be dressed as a serial killer this year. I look like everybody else."
Those are my favorite kind of costumes, the psychological ones that only the cool kids understand.
Yeah,
Ah,
I have had some crazy stuff happen on Halloween.
do tell.
Crazy. Well, there is one time, and you know Alan.
Yes.
Okay. I'll just mention his first name. I'm gonna go any further than that because he's really really weird about all that, and I don't blame him. Anyway, me, him, and another fella, another friend of ours, we used to get together every Halloween and just hang out. It was just a thing. It started out around about Halloween. There was a big sci-fi convention in town, and we'd go to it. You know, Trekkie convention. Then it turned out to be just a regular convention to get together and just be geeks. It was a geek fest.
Love it.
Yeah. So once that kind of fizzled out, decided we're just going to continue the tradition. Well, one year we got together at Al's house, and we were just hanging out. He said, "Well, I got this place back behind the house here, and it's going to take a little while to get to it, but it's a graveyard. It's got three graves in it. It's kind of cool." I was like,
That's a
"Well,
bad idea from jump. I don't.
okay. Um, it's Halloween. Let's do some Halloweeny shit.
Let's get
Let's go on up.
cliche.
Let's yeah, it's exactly right. Well, let's get cliche and let's get up there and do something." So with flashlights and a hatchet and even well, I got whatever other hand weapons we had. Like it meant a damn bit of difference anyway. We made our way. We took an old logging road back up behind his house. I made our way to this clearing. Now the moon was full that night. It was right. I mean, it was it. Seriously, see, she gets me.
Yeah, that's my kind of sense of humor is dad jokes. I'm down for it.
Oh, anyway, we got up there, and it's the way it's set up, man. Because there's small cedar trees. They're probably maybe 3 or 4 inches in diameter, and they're lining. They're. Oh, here we go. They're all in a row,
Ew,
right?
like a
And
pathway type of
like a
thing?
pathway,
Ew.
and lead to this little clearing. And these and Alan says, let's just be respectful, okay? Let's leave our weapons right here. So we did,
Great idea.
okay? Turned our flashlights off. We
Oh,
could see because we could see.
why?
The moon was full. It was a clearing. We walked through
Honey.
the we walked through there, and we got to and there are 3 headstones there. There are 3 headstones, and they were 1800s. They've been there for a long time. Okay, been there a long time, and I swear to you, it was the most peaceful, serene. It was great. I I would have laid down there and slept all the rest of the night. I kid
That's
you not.
amazing.
It was that peaceful, that serene. Okay, so we paid our respects. Said thank you for letting us hang out here, and we walked back down to the trees. Got and picked up our weapons and started moseying on. Now, Alan, Al had 2 dogs, and they came with us, and they had ran off and did their thing. He said, "Well, there's a cabin right over here. You want to take a look at this cabin?" Well, I was like, "Well, hell yeah, might as well. We're here,
Great
It's
idea.
Halloween." Well, we start making our way toward that cabin. But apparently his dogs had been out that way, and they were hightailing it. They were busting ass back that way. They ran around us. They would have run through us if they would have hit us. They
They
weren't
were like,
stopping.
nope.
No, they
Humans,
didn't
y'all,
want
it's up to y'all. Fend for
what
yourself.
whatever was out there. Whatever was out there scared the shit out of them, and they took off. And our dumbasses said, "Huh, okay," and so we kept walking.
This is
We
literally
kept
the script
walking.
for a B-rated horror movie. I love it.
Exactly. So we get out there, and Al will tell you this. We we busted through this clearing to where the cabin was, and I swear to you, it was glowing a pale green. And there was a feeling as soon as we got into that clearing, there was a feeling that it was malevolent.
Oof.
It felt nasty. It felt.
Mm-mm.
mm, It's the only thing I can say is it felt nasty.
Yet
And
you walked in it, I bet.
no, no, no.
I
We
was gonna say.
actually, Al and I looked at each other and we were like,
Nope.
um, fuck this. So we walked. We turned around and old D man is like, well, what's the matter? We're going to look around. I said, do you not see that?
He would be the
Do
first one to
you
die in
not?
that horror movie.
Yeah, he was the red shirt. If he was in Star Trek, he'd be the red shirt. Yeah, straight up. So we made our way back, and me and Al are totally freaking out. It's like what the hell? What is this? And what did we just see? We got down there, and his sister Jean, she was a little skeptical, you know, but she could tell we saw something. She knew her brother didn't bullshit her about nothing like that. So she said, "Hey, you mind? I would like to see this." And we looked at each other and was like, okay, okay. So we did. We went back up there. And when we got back up there, that glow was gone. There was a glow around it, but it was from the moonlight, uh, reflecting off a tin roof of that cabin. So to this day, neither one of us knows what the hell that was about.
That's insane.
But yeah,
It's great though that you weren't by yourself to experience it. Like I kind of enjoy when
having
multiple
people
people
with you.
experience the same. Yeah, you kind of find like solidarity in that sort of like what the fuck? Yeah, like what was that?
But there's so many people that are out there who have these experiences. You standing there with your buddy. You've been buddies since you was in kindergarten, right? You like in junior high or high school, and you have these freaky ass experience together. And next thing you know, you guys aren't talking to one another because he refuses to say a damn word about it and will straight up call you a nutbag to your face and everybody else when you start talking about it. Now, what is wrong with people, man? That
That's
really
horrible.
happens. That really happens. It really happens. And I
That's
just
how far people are willing to go to deny what they have even witnessed themselves.
deep rooted cognitive dissonance can ruin a relationship,
Oh yeah.
completely ruin it.
That's why
But
it's so
yeah.
great to kind of find a group of like-minded people so that you can bounce all of these
Hmm.
discussions off of each other without feeling like people are looking at you like you're crazy.
Right. Exactly. Like I said, I I like minded people, but I don't like an echo chamber.
Yes, I love for people to discuss with me, challenge what I think I know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this group, this chat in here is doing just that. Like especially when we were talking about that earlier, Clayton was coming in with big old facts and I was like, "Yes,
Hmm.
okay. Tell me about it. Teach me."
All right, right here, Clayton once again hits it. Little people frighten me more than Sasquatch. I'm
Thank
telling you,
you. I agree.
I got to agree with you. I've got to agree with you because they won't. I don't think they'll give you any warning. I think they'll just jack your shit. I really do. Now, I was given warning once. Well, I've been given warning twice One really subtle, but I knew what it meant, so I backed off and I was like, "Okay, okay, we're good, we're good. You guys stay over there, and I'm gonna go back here. Uh, we're good." One night, I was out camping by myself, and that's the night they got in my head. That's the night I know what telepathy feels like.
What? I didn't even know they could do that.
They were I don't know that all of them can. Look, it's like, it's not an exact science here, but when you're communicated to in a certain degree that it's not words, it's what's being interpreted in your head through
That's
either
insane.
through either visions or um, something. You get it. You understand. The words that were interpreted to me was you are not wanted here. You need to leave now.
If you could see the chill bumps that I just got,
Go.
no.
You need to leave now. I was the only dude, I was the only living human soul in that holler that night. It was a new moon. I I I specifically chose that night because it was a new moon, because I wanted activity.
And
Okay.
you got it.
I did got it. Seek and ye shall find, and I got it in
Uh,
spades.
I am not seeking. I am not finding. No, thank you. No, that's crazy. That's amazing though that you kind of escaped that unscathed.
Well, not so much. I mean, physically, yes. Mentally, no.
No, I mean, no, like that. Oh God, that would almost be like on like I would even say for me that would be traumatic. Like if I had that sort of experience, I would be very
When you,
unsettled.
well, well, you feel violated, to be honest, when you have thoughts projected into your head that are not your own.
Mhm.
And they made their presence known. Um, what There were contributing factors to what happened, and I will straight up say that it was my fault for doing it. It was. I was following in the footsteps of some of these dumb shits. They're on TV, beating and banging on the trees and hollering like
Oh
crazy
Lord.
people. Yeah, and it's like, I'm like, my He-Man macho factor was out there. So I've been camping out here before. I've camped a bunch of times by myself and enjoyed it, loved it. Yeah, but a couple other things happened during the daytime that should have sent up red flags. I'm like, no, I ignored that. I said, I'm going to get activity tonight.
By yourself.
I was by
How do
myself.
you have the gonads of steel to be able to do that? I could never.
No, I was yeah, all balls and no brains leads to a dead dog. So
We love
that's
those
all.
southern euphemisms.
You know, all balls and no brains leads to a dead dog, and that's what happened, man. If I had not heeded, because I had my rifle with me, and I felt zero comfort because I knew I was surrounded. I was surrounded, and they were making these sounds. You living in the country, you live right beside mama. You know what a whippoorwill sounds like. They can be loud, but they don't sound like a huge bird. Even when they're close to the house, they don't. They might be a little loud, but they don't sound like a 50-pound gorilla, a 500-pound gorilla. They don't. They're not that big. They're not that loud. And there was like 7 or 8 of them around me at one time, and they
Oh
were
my
all,
God.
and it was loud, loud. They can't. The one thing about the Sabe people is the fact that they cannot mask their volume. That's the only thing they can't do.
I was thinking about that too because in the Sierra camp recordings, they were awfully loud, and I think they were trying to talk to one another, not only mimic back what the men were doing, or communicate with them. I think they were trying to talk to one another because there was more than one.
Yep.
Um, and that would be that volume leveling thing that they can't really do because they were like
Yep.
screaming. So, which is maybe why they've learned to like communicate in more like incognito type of ways, like whistling. If
Hmm.
they were making whistling sounds like that, nobody would really like. You might kind of raise an eyebrow at a very very loud bird.
Well,
Mm.
I'm going to tell you. Speaking of birds, another thing that the ones around here do. Now, I'm only basing what I know. I'm only telling you what I know based on what I've experienced, investigating and researching here where I do. Woodpeckers. These woods are eat up with woodpeckers.
Oh God, my house porch is eat up with woodpeckers. Yeah.
And you know what they sound like. And they have a pattern, right? And they have a certain volume level. There's a couple of them that might be a little loud, but they always have a pattern. Now, they mimic their wood knocks to sound like a woodpecker, but they're not. I've noticed a difference. They deviate in their pattern. Their pattern is
It's almost like
different than the
Morse
woodpecker.
code.
Yeah, and
How cool is that?
and one day I've got it on video. I was headed toward one of the wood knocks. I was headed toward the wood knocks. I had my camera, and I got to a certain point, and then everything got kind of like settled down. So I sat down on this tree, this fallen tree. I set my camera down on the tripod right in front of me. I'm just sitting and waiting, and I hear behind me. I hear a woo woo,
Mm-mm.
and then in front of me, probably not 50 yards away, whoosh, a crash. Something pushed over a tree right there in front of me. And I'm like, okay, that's enough. I'm good. I'm good, guys. I got a little too close. That's cool. I'm backing off.
My question is that first of all, I would have, shit my pants. Second of all, w- they're obviously not inherently violent creatures, but like, why would they even warn you to begin with? Because isn't their kind of whole thing that they don't want to be found? They don't want to be known. They don't want to be noticed. They're obviously making noises and were
Right.
very much showing themselves to you. Maybe not visually, but they were very much letting you know that they were there.
See, they're around people all the time. Where I do my research, there are hiking trails and biking trails all through them woods.
Hmm.
All through them woods. And I've been through about all of them. And I've seen sign that they've left tree bends, structures. If you see one of my videos, there's a tree blind that they had built. Okay. And I noticed it one day. There's fresh snow on the ground, and I'm taking this trail that I hadn't taken yet. And I'm walking up, and I look over, and I said, "What the hell is that?" It looked like a little teepee, a little teepee. I mean, an A-frame, right? And it's a fallen tree, and they have all these limbs piled up against it. Now, it's not just that they're stacked; they lace others into into each
Very
other.
purposefully
They
done.
right. They don't. Humans just don't naturally do that. Humans just don't naturally do that. And
Was
here's
it big
another
enough
thing.
to theoretically fit one
Yeah,
in it, like in it as
I,
a
c-
shelter?
I could I could have got in it and laid down. And
Wow.
I think that was the point It was a blind. And I come back and I come back when all the leaves are out on the trees, virtually invisible. Virtually
Okay. That's
invisible.
kind of scary because how many times have we like literally passed by these creatures and they're so good at basically being in stealth mode, you would have no idea.
Yep, that's the thing. I've I've seen so many people jogging on these trails,
That's a bad idea anyway.
and
Jogging's a bad idea.
they've got their headphones on.
That is just bizarre to
They're
me because
jogging.
you need to be scared of other people too. That's a serial killer's favorite kind of hunting ground is jogging trails. Like
Hmm.
you are not paying attention. You are trying to fight for your life running to begin with, you know? So it's like somebody can
Hmm.
hit you upside the head with a rock very easily.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. So
I'm
there we
curious,
are.
do you have a theory as to why they bend and break the trees like that? Is it kind of like a landmark type of thing so they can navigate, or do you think it's like a communication to different tribes or something? Or like what do you think that they do that for?
The breaking of the trees.
Or just
I've
kind of like any sort of signaling that they do with stuff like that.
This is just a theory. I don't know. They haven't told me anything, but I found the tree bends. These are trees. Some of them that about that big around. Some of them that big around. Perfectly bent over, and it looks like they've been pinned to the ground. The top of the tree looks like it's been pinned to the ground. Okay. There's not a crack. There's not a break. No seam in it. I can't explain that. Okay.
That's crazy.
I'll usually find those near water. I usually around here, I usually always find those bends near water or pointing toward water. Okay. And when I find the breaks, there are trees, some of them that big around, broke off. Say, eh, we'll give an estimate about 14, 15 inches off the ground, broke, just laid over like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all laid in a certain direction. They're usually laid in a certain direction when I see them.
It's got to be some sort of navigational thing, I would think.
I've found a lot of people talk about the big X's. I've found one actual X, and they were said to be a warning to stay away. I'm not sure. Okay, but
I don't think that I think that they would be smart enough to know that it wouldn't be interpreted by that, like that, at least by people, because they don't believe that they exist anyway. So a big old X might not do much good.
yeah, let's say it's keep out. But but it was old. It's actually fallen down now.
Dang.
So yeah, but every time I find one of the breaks, I mean it's like bent like that.
Yeah.
Like it goes up so far and it just bends straight over and lays down. And I don't know. I just got a feeling that this is a like a boundary marker. This is our
Like
side.
marking
This
their
is your side.
territory.
Sorta, maybe. But they're
Yeah.
like I said, they're around people all the time. The
That in and
difference,
of itself is scary.
but see the difference between all these other people and me. I know.
Mm, you got
I'm
the
looking.
inside scoop.
I am pretty much. I'm looking. I know. I'm seeing, and they know that I know.
Yeah, you have that layer of clarity that no one else does. So, and I wonder if they can pick up on that. I mean, I'm sure they know you now because you're so like obvious about what you're doing, and
Hmm.
for rightfully so that they know that you're not a threat. But I wonder if they can pick up on people who kind of have that level of clarity.
Intent. I know
Hmm.
they can sense intent. I mean, we all have that to a certain degree. That we all have
Mhm.
that in ingrained sixth sense in us. It's just those of us who choose to pay attention to it, and those of us who
Mhm.
ignore it. You don't trust your
Oh
gut,
yeah.
but yeah, um, I believe they know exactly what my intentions are, especially now.
So do you think, and I think you've touched on this before, so sorry if I'm asking you to repeat something, but
No,
do
go
you
ahead.
think that there are some who are just more, like maybe even like clans or tribes or however you describe that, but that are more violently intended than others, and like you will get warnings to stay away if others think that you may be in danger? Like, do you think that they are like helpful like that?
That's true. I think that's possible. I think it's very well possible. I mean, you look at how many crazy people there are out here. You
But
don't
the
think
thing
there's a
about it
crazy
is
Sasquatch
too,
out there?
well, it's weird because there you don't really hear stories about them harming people. They just kind of exist. They're just kind of, at least I haven't really heard a lot of stories of them going out of their way to harm people.
Well, I've heard some nasty stories.
Really? I'd
Yeah.
love to hear.
Um, One in particular, has always stuck out. This fellow was going to sight in his rifle. Went to a gun range. Okay. Um, he went to a gun range and didn't come back. Um, uh, his wife got worried about him. Called his buddy up. Said, "Look, so and so's been gone for at least a day and a half. We don't know where he's at. He was supposed to be at the gun range. He was supposed to be sighting in his rifle for deer season. Okay, and the guy says, "Okay, I know exactly where it's at. I'm gonna go up there and check it out." He gets up there and he finds the fellow's truck. It's a little Ford Ranger, and ain't nobody around. And he looks in the truck, and there's his buddy. He is bent in a way that is not naturally possible. He's bent.
Oh no.
He's shoved into the floorboard, bent in half. Okay, I'm talking backwards.
Oh no.
The back of his feet touching the back of his head, wrapped all up,
Mm,
and
basically
shoved in,
folded.
folded in,
Origami
folded,
style.
literally folded in half and shoved into his truck, and his deer rifles busted all to hell.
Oh my God. A person couldn't have done that.
All right.
Even if people wanted to claim that, a person could not have. I mean,
So there's,
maybe, but
I mean, there's all kinds of other stories of this, not the Sabe taking people off.
that is, I think, a root of the theories for the missing 411. Is because
Yeah.
you don't find a single shred of evidence of them anywhere. You don't find weapons, you don't
Right.
find backpacks, you don't find
Right.
anything.
Hmm.
If they, especially with hunters and stuff, if they go missing and they're carrying bows and stuff, like if they're gonna eventually drop those weapons, right? Because they get very heavy. If you're sitting here trying to, like, you're lost and you're trying to find your way back, you're just gonna kind of
Hmm.
shed the gear that you have the further you go because you're tired. You don't find a single shred of evidence in a lot of those cases. And a lot of those missing, like, people points really do connect with like the underground cave systems that they know about. So that's
Yep.
interesting too. Do you think that they reside in the Sabe? Do you think that they kind of reside in the cave systems?
I think it's
Or do you think
possible.
that's more of like a reptilian thing? Well,
That,
that's a whole nother rabbit hole too.
oh, I know. I know. Here lately, I've been hearing a lot of people scoff at that. I'm like, do you know for sure?
Right. Like,
It's
why
like,
not? If even other people who believe in different, creatures, like, why would a dogman be more real than a reptilian?
oh, I see. Ray brings up another thing in the shoe thing. Are you familiar about how people will go missing and they'll find their clothes neatly folded and
Oh
stacked,
gosh,
and their
yes.
shoes placed there? It's just
Neatly placed next to each other.
yep.
Yes. Yes,
and they're
yes, yes,
no
yes.
and they're nowhere to be seen.
No. And a lot of people will throw out that whole hypothermia thing because a lot of times it's in the mountains
Hmm.
and it's in during hunting season. It's cold.
Hmm.
The theory is you get hypothermia and your mind tricks you into thinking you're hot, so they strip down. Um, okay, well, who has hypothermia is going to neatly fold and place their clothes next to each other, and be like, oh, I'm sweaty. Here, let me just, you're not gonna do that and then go off and die somewhere. Like, never understood people kind of throwing that theory out there.
Oh, well.
I love it how, yeah, as the story continues, he just grunts in acceptance and be like, okay, and just kept on about his
Yeah.
business.
But here's the thing, folks. I've had them all around me. I've had them in my head. I've had them think, evidently sling shit at me, but I've never, I've never seen one that I know of.
So, question: do you think that
Hmm.
the image that we all kind of have, like know and love of the Sabe, the Sasquatch, right? Like, how accurate do you think that is? Do you really think that they're ape-like? Do you really think that they're like some gorillas on 2 feet? like,
Well, all right. Bigfoot Odyssey now has sketching Sasquatch episodes, and uh, Mr. Batson gets on there and sketches people's rendition, uh, their description of what they saw, and there's a variation, and there are so many human looking faces.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's weird, and the thing is, the Rick says mine had a very human face. So did Carrie. Carrie Arnold's uh, one looked very human. Um, you hear a lot of hunters, the ones that are actually brave enough to come forward and testify about their experience, say that they had their crosshairs on this thing, couldn't believe what they were seeing, but couldn't pull the trigger because they looked too human.
That's terrifying. That's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Hmm.
So, okay, so this is another one that's kind of like a hot button topic that everybody has a different opinion. Do you think they kind of branched off from us in the evolutionary chain, or do you think they're an entirely different sort of like bipedal creature that just so happened to evolve to kind of look like us?
I think there's a reason why their maternal side is human.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, this is my own personal belief, but I believe that we were derived from them.
Do you
We
think that
were
that was a natural progression, or do you think that that was a kind of created
well,
progression? Like,
there. There's there's um there's a certain part of us that are different than anything else on the planet, and there's a certain part of them that is definitely different than anything else on the planet. Their DNA has been tested, had come back inconclusive.
hmm.
You know, the maternal side was human. The paternal side was unknown. They don't know what species that other part is.
So, are you saying that you think that they like bred with humans, or that we kind of like evolved from them, like down the evolutionary chain?
That's where it gets a little hazy.
Because
I mean,
that's it kind of reminds me of the oh God, what do you call them? The giants, where like if an angel bred with a woman, you would get
you talking about the
what are they called?
come on, everybody. I I hadn't had a lot of sleep.
Same.
You
The
so you're
Anunnaki.
talking
Well, no, that's different.
Anunnakis. That's yeah,
That's
that's in on that's in Sumerian.
hmm God,
We're
what are those
talking.
things called? Hold on, I'm gonna have to Google it because I know this off the top of my head. Hold on.
Nephilim, the
There
Nephilim.
you go. Thank
Oh
you.
yeah, it's there.
So that kind of is what that reminds me of, is how you kind of get these beastly creatures from that sort of pairing. But in biology, you know, creatures like that who are so different should not even be able to procreate. So do you think that that was a created creation, and like a scientifically or cosmically created creation, or
I think so.
that's a loaded question, I know.
There's a lot of theories that we are, we were seeded here, um,
Mhm.
as a species, that humans were, and we were different when we got here, but we were genetically altered at some point.
She think it's one big, grand, very, very long experiment.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know, but there's just so much that you look into our past as deep as you
Doesn't make
can,
sense.
right? We don't make sense.
No.
We look at, I mean, if you look at it from the Christian perspective, you could sit back and say, our hairlessness and our vulnerability to the elements are part of the curse. But what if
Adam
it's
and Eve weren't
not?
hairy.
Look, this is the extent of hair that we've got on ourselves, and I mean, granted, it covers 98% of our body,
But
but
it
it so
does
finds
nothing.
no exactly.
It provides nothing but more work for women, especially.
Our bodies aren't designed to take on the elements like every other living creature on this planet. And I sit and
No.
tell these people, I sit and tell people this, and they look like I've got four heads. It's like, what is wrong with you?
Like, you can even take the education that we had in just basic biology and figure that out, basic just science, and just be like, hey, we're not meant to be here. Like, we don't make sense.
No, our technology is the only reason why we survive.
Yes. And we're
We
becoming too reliant on it.
look at our shelters. We need air conditioning in the summertime. We need heat in the winter. We don't have I mean, why do we all of a sudden start having to wear clothes?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that devolving?
Yeah, and here's the thing too, is like even from like just even the most bare bones perspective of it, we are like the only mammal who sweats to reduce our body temperature.
Yep.
Sweating is releasing the very, very critical like salt chemical from our
Hmm.
from our mineral from our body, and water. Oh, girl, listen, I gotta take a chisel and a razor to my face all the time. Listen, and talk about bearded lady. I about look like Lee if I leave it too long. Like, uh-uh.
Yeah.
Girl, gotta take some scissors to her eyebrows every now and then. Listen, no.
Uh, Lord have mercy.
I think I'm a little bit half Sasquatch.
Lord. Uh, this is Look, this has been a great episode. This has been a great conversation. This has been fantastic. It keeps getting better and better.
You guys are great.
Um, yeah, chat's been lighting it up tonight. Have
Okay,
you?
so I've
Okay.
heard that too. God, Clayton, you're on fire. Yes.
Yes. See, that's where I was trying to get from.
Right.
You know,
Yes, ma'am.
I this is what I was kind of trying to say.
Yes.
They all right. A lot of people kind of shit all over the show, Ancient Aliens.
I love that show with my whole heart for it, even for its cheesy stuff. I love it. That is like my
The
comfort show. I'll fall
if
asleep to it. I love it.
if you can get past the Hollywood bullshit and concentrate on the truth they're trying to purvey,
Hmm.
their real truth is there. And
Yes.
I think they fluffed it up enough with enough Hollywood foo to where a lot of people just don't take it seriously, and have enough people on there to where people go like, they're full of shit. But
Well,
I
I think
believe it.
their downfall is the fact that first of all, they have so many seasons, so they're running out of things to talk about. And they have
Yeah,
contradicted themselves.
yeah.
But in the
The
beginning, especially, there was things that were a lot factual.
the first the first 6 seasons,
Hmm.
I believe, they were on point.
I love that show so much. Also,
I
the
believe.
dude with the crazy hair, I can never remember his name, but he's my spirit animal. I don't know.
But yeah, but it's a fact that I believe that what they're saying is true, and it's kind of hard to refute when you actually go back yourself and start doing the research. Now, instead of taking somebody's word for it, you got to do your diligence, and you got to go back and do your research, and you got to like, okay, if you can understand it, and then sit back and say, hey, maybe they're right.
And just it's the trouble that people have to have the want to learn and the want to know. Like,
Right.
because once you break that barrier and once you have that layer of clarity, there's no way of going back to blissful ignorance. It's just never the same after that.
Nope. Once the veil has been lifted, you're done.
Hmm. Yep. It
It's
is a
like,
blessing and a curse because you kind of wish you could be a little bit of a sheeple sometimes because
mhm.
things get a little too rough and too hard to comprehend and grasp, and it's a little overwhelming. But, I think I'm much happier that I know or that I, have that kind of I know that a lot of the things I'm told or that I see are not real in like society standards.
I believe that's true. What Ray's saying right here. I'm gonna have to go back and check that. I, I've gotten kind of away from it, but I'm gonna start hitting the books again. It's time.
'Tis time.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap this up. It's 2.5 hours.
Hmm. Yeah, girl's gotta get up and get her kid to school.
Yeah, me too. I gotta get a little boy to get to school.
This has been so much fun, though. I've had a great time, and I really appreciate you inviting me.
Oh, it was a pleasure. My question to you is: would you be willing to come back again?
Anytime.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
this was
awesome.
great. This
That's
was a lot of
awesome.
fun.
The chat's loved you. The chat's loved you. You're a hit.
Appreciate you guys. You've been great.
Okay, right here. One more thing. Those emerald tablets are 30,000 years old. Yeah.
Enlighten me on the emerald tablets.
They are a history. They are a lineage of some of the higher ups, the ruling classes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let me tell you, these people lived for a very, very, very long time.
Oh, wow. What a can of worms.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you sit back and you think about, all right, one more note. Let's go back to um, our our vampire topic and some of the lure to the today is not only the glam, the you know, beautification of the subject of these creatures, but their immortality.
Mhm.
And people gravitate toward the immortality, and um, I think a lot of our medicine hasn't really touched on why we age the way we do. What is it that makes us age? You just let's not time. Mm-mm, no. Look at a dog. A dog is born. It lives 12 to 18 years, a good life, and dies. That's it. Cat lives, is born, lives 10, 12, 13 years, dies. That's it. And there's the possibility that they live a little bit longer, but not by much. But we're like the elves to them, in the old stories, and you know, we live centuries compared to these some of these other creatures. Now, what makes them age so quickly? What makes us age? Nobody really knows. So you talk even in the Bible, you have Methuselah living 800 years. Can you imagine 800 years? Now in the Emerald text, they're talking about people living thousands of years.
That's insanity to me. Like, what would you do with all that time?
I don't know.
Except for cause trouble.
I don't know. Where did it all go? What happened?
Mhm.
What happened? What made us what the big my big question now, you know, and I said this in I think it's the first episode of Raven's Eye is that I'm not out here to prove anything to anyone anymore. I I had my own clarification. I had my justification. I had my uh, moment of clarity to where I know there are things out here that exist that are beyond most people's comprehension. I know this already. I want to know why.
Mhm.
I'm looking for answers. And that's why I started the Ravens Outpost. Gather that knowledge. And in the Raven's Eye, let's share it. Let's share what we know. You know, so I mean, we've got so many different opinions because basically that's what it is, what it boils down to. And I'm rambling, I know. It's late.
No, I mean, it really just boils down to the fact that we don't have concrete, solid proof or explanations for any of this, but that's the intrigue.
Right. Exactly. Thank you. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, I do appreciate you hanging in there. Thank you everybody in chat. I love you. Mean it. Um, the Raven's Eye is going to come to a close. Um, Brianna, I love you, honey. I appreciate you coming on, and I'd love to have you back on a round table.
I love you too, and I would love that. This has been great, a great experience, and thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And everybody, until next time, I love you, mean it.
Bye.
Bye.